was. Coming up in this episode, we have San Expedito, high winds, high explosives, and this, built in London in 1869 and sailed for 40 years. And it's been abandoned on this beach since 1899, so it's more than 100 years she's been rusting away here. Look at that, you can even see the old beds. But it took him a while to take the photo because he couldn't stop laughing at how overloaded I was. So I'm in the extreme south of Argentina, staying in a very nice hotel called Le Marchand beside Ruta National Tres. I got up at the crack of dawn because I knew I had to hit the road before the midday winds got too strong. And if I needed any reminder how cold it was overnight, look at the ice on my bag. Below zero? My hopes of an early getaway sank when my engine only tried to start twice, then appeared to be flat. But I don't believe it was flat. It was just the cold weather, which is hard on any lead-acid battery. Luckily, my bike has a Kickstarter, and this is one time I'm glad I bought a bike with a Kickstarter. It still took me half an hour to get her to fire up, but eventually she did. So I'm hitting the road and heading south. I usually go 100 kilometres and then pull over and oil the chain at least once a day. But finding a suitable place out of the wind to pull over and oil it was a bit difficult, but finally I found this place, which is where I oiled the chain. It was slowly warming up, but 5 degrees isn't warm in the wind. Just before the town of Rio Gallegos, I saw something interesting, so I turned around to take a closer look. It was a shrine to San Expedito, the Catholic saint. In English he's called Saint Expeditus, and he's the patron saint of emergencies, expeditious solutions, merchants, navigators, and more recently, computer nerds. I think at some point in their lives everybody would need to say a prayer to Saint Expeditus. That looks like a walkway up to the cross. They often have them with stations of the cross at each point. Man, these sheep, they look a bit cold. You can hear in the background how blustery the wind was. And there's my bike. The police officer here, he just waved me through, unlike the cars who had to produce their papers. I must look like a traveller. I came to this police checkpoint and the policeman asked me to step inside and present my papers. The officers wore very thick clothing. The station was heated, thankfully. The officer cleared his throat and said, "It is my duty to inform you that today is a very bad day for wind, and you should be especially careful on a bike like yours." I thanked him and went on my way. After Rio Gallegos, the scenery started to change a bit. I came to this rocky outcrop and took a photo, but I didn't know exactly the significance until I looked it up later on Google Earth. We were skirting around the edge of the Pali-Aiki volcanic fields, and they have a very interesting history. This one is just a little one a few hundred metres long, but further west they extend for hundreds of kilometres. The lava flows began almost 4 million years ago and continued up to 3,400 years ago, by which time humans were already living in this area. And they continued to live here until the European settlers came and basically wiped them out. But the story doesn't end there. In the early 1930s, a pioneering archaeologist called Junius Bird explored here with his wife in an old Ford Model T, and in one of the caves he discovered skeletons of extinct horses and giant sloths and projectile points indicating that humans were present here hunting megafauna 11,000 years ago, which at the time was the oldest evidence of humans in South America. I came to this Argentine customs checkpoint, but they just waved me straight through. Both Argentine and Chilean customs were done in this one building. A man came out, looked at my bike, asked lots of questions, and then I was through. I was back in Chile. Keeping an eye on my odometer, I chose this place. I think it was a truck stop cafe to park out of the wind and refill my tank. But it was so windy, a lot of the gasoline got spilt. I decided to get out my anemometer and just check what the wind speed was. And guess what? It was even windier than yesterday. 22.8 meters per second is the equivalent of 82 kilometers an hour or 51 miles per hour. Now, it was only 4.4 degrees Celsius. Now, if you do the math, it comes to a chill factor of -4 degrees Celsius or a chilly 24 degrees Fahrenheit. And it was a sunny afternoon, but I'm in Patagonia. Man, it's cold. Here too, I got my first glimpse of that historic Strait of Magellan. Next, I saw a bunch of warning signs. Another minefield, landmines in 3 languages, Spanish, English and German. You wouldn't want to go camping here in the middle of the night and not see these warning signs. Then I came to something completely unexpected. Some abandoned buildings and what appeared to be a shipwreck. I was running ahead of schedule, so it was worth getting off the bike and wandering over and checking it out. This boat's called the Armadillo. A sign said it was a 36-metre long steamship which sailed from 1893 to 1932. It was built in Scotland and originally was employed in the Rio de la Plata in Argentina before being bought by a wealthy Spanish landowner who named it Armadillo after Armadillo I, a Spanish king. What they don't mention is it was also used as a transport ship for indigenous people from Tierra del Fuego, and they were taken to Salesian missions where they were kept virtual prisoner and many of them died. It was also used to ship people and livestock between Patagonia and the Falkland Islands. But, surprise, surprise, there wasn't one but two shipwrecks beside each other. The other one was called the Ambassador, built in London in 1869 and sailed for 40 years. It was a sailing ship, a tea clipper, and its fastest passage was between China and England. It took 108 days back in 1872, and it's been abandoned on this beach since 1899, so it's more than 100 years she's been rusting away here. The owner of the Armadillo was a Spanish sheep baron who also built all these buildings, now abandoned as well. He owned hundreds of thousands of hectares of land here in Patagonia and also in Tierra del Fuego. But this giant livestock, mainly sheep, processing plant looks like it was only abandoned yesterday. Look at this long cast iron bath, or I don't know, is it a bath or a trough or a washing basin? Not sure. Deposito Materiales, some sort of materials depot. Apparently this place was still occupied up until the 1970s, but its heyday was in the 1920s and 30s. Look at that, you can even see the old beds. Garage, or garaje as they say in Spanish. Herreria, that's like an iron foundry. And what's up there? It says cocina, which means kitchen. But whoever worked in this now abandoned building would have had great views because it's right in front of the Strait of Magellan. The St. Gregory Sheep Station, founded in 1876. Not far along the road from here, I found a lonely service station. While I was stretching my legs, the wind blew my bike clean over. I got it back up in about 2 minutes with the help of another driver who was just as amazed as I was. Back on the road, I could see on my GPS that my destination, the town of Punta Arenas, was almost within reach. Then I came to major roadworks, which proved fortuitous for taking the next two photos. I handed a road worker my camera to take this photo, but it took him a while to take the photo because he couldn't stop laughing at how overloaded I was. Finally, Punta Arenas swung into view, though it was still quite a few kilometres before I got there. I will always remember arriving in Punta Arenas because it was the first time I have been physically bitten by a stray dog. A bunch of about 6 of them, all with very shaggy coats due to the cold, singled me out from the other traffic at a stoplight, and one of them actually bit my leg as I was moving along about 10 kilometres per hour. He didn't do any damage to me though because I was wearing my motocross boots, but he dug his teeth in. Previously I had seen street dogs go crazy in Valparaiso at motorbikes, perhaps because from a dog's point of view they look more manageable than a truck or car, and you know, there's something to sink their teeth into. When there are 2 bikes together, however, they seem to go for me over the other bike. I'm guessing perhaps because of the sharper note of my exhaust due to a small leak that has developed. As I had no headlights, I had to find a hostel quick before it got too dark, and doubling around here and there, the first one I tried was closed for the off-season. I was going around the town centre when a taxi driver asked me if I was looking for a hostel. I replied, yes, if it has parking. The driver, called Christian, motioned me just to follow him. That's how I ended up staying at this place, the Hostel Patagonia House, which was to be my base in the southern suburbs of Punta Arenas. Though there are towns further south on Tierra del Fuego, this is the southernmost large town on the continental mainland of South America. I actually felt proud of myself. I'd made it. From the centre of the continent in Cusco right down here to the southernmost region, covering 7,500 kilometres in just over 2 months. Yay! After I unpacked, I had just enough daylight to go and explore a bit of the town, and I noticed some of the buildings' architecture was absolutely magnificent. That's all for now, amigos, but coming up in the next episode we have... oh man, an antique diving suit. Yep, my new video camera has a really good zoom. Man, it might be sunny, but gee, it's cold. Look how thick the clothing is on these ladies. What are they? I think I know what they are. It says El Templo Disco, but what kind of temple? This mannequin on the balcony appears to be a ghoul. One last thing before we go. Remember in the previous episode, episode 33, I was warned by the pretty police lady not to take Ruta 40 where it was unsealed because the danger of getting blown off the bike and lying there injured. And I spoke about my American friend who I met in Valparaiso who got blown off his big BMW 1200 several times. Well, I just got an email last week from Herbert, the German that was also in that episode, and this is what he said. And it kind of indicates the fact that I should really stick to tarred roads in the windy season down here in Patagonia. This is what he said. Hi Glenn, the wind in Patagonia is a special topic. I came from south. Near Bajo Caracoles on Ruta Nacional 40, the wind blew me down and I trapped my leg under the motorcycle. Next day I visited the hospital in Perito Moreno and had the leg and foot x-rayed. Luckily nothing was broken, but I had to spend a few days at the campground in Perito Moreno because riding a bike was too painful and unsafe. All the best, Herbert. Okay, that's really all for now, but from the next episode on, the standard should increase quite a bit because the first thing I did in Punta Arenas was buy a new video camera, so less of these still shots and shaky pocket camera videos. The watchability factor should increase. Ciao for now.